We'll be right with you.
All right, here we go. We are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Party Records Podcast. My name is Matt Brown, and as always, I'm here with my co-host, Sam Davis. And we're doing something a little bit different today. We actually had decided to try to go live on TikTok. So as this is being recorded, we're live on TikTok, and what we're going to do is we're going to try to field some live questions and see if we can't help some people right here live on TikTok tonight and see what we can't get done. Sam, how are you doing?
Man, I'm doing all right. Everybody here on TikTok saying we got a bad echo. So what are we doing here, bud?
Man, I don't know. I don't know how to fix this. It's not coming from our mics for the podcast, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. And we can edit all this stuff. That's the beauty of technology.
Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, I don't necessarily. Let me see if I just turn down the volume on my phone here. If that
it says Sam's got the echo. You're good, Matt. Sam's got an echo. What the hell?
All right. Everybody gets to see my hand right now. All right. Did that fix anything, guys?
We good now? Hey, how we coming out now? Everybody all right? That's better. All right, she said that's better, so we're good to go.
Very, very good.
All right, I'm going to start again. Would you ask me what I was up to, how things been?
Well, let's just start from the top. You guys kind of get to see how many times we attempt the intro to our own podcast here. We're rookies. We've only got, 16, 17 episodes in so far right now, Sam?
Yeah, but I think we've had like 30,000 people watching it.
Yeah, but they get to hear the finished product. These guys are actually hearing us make all the mistakes. They get to see warts and all tonight.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. They'll see us in. Somebody said, Matt, talk about working with adolescents.
I will. Let's. Okay, it says we can't hear you, Matt. Is that everybody, or is that just one person? Am I not being heard, guys? Let me do this. I'm going to plug a microphone back in here to my phone. I was worried that might have been the problem. How about now, guys? Can you hear me?
Lord, people are going to be like, man, this podcast sucks.
Yeah, we're going to be answering more questions about technical stuff than we are addiction tonight. All right, it says everybody can hear me now. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Behind the Scenes at the Party Records Podcast. We're going to take some questions from you guys tonight. We want to be able to just answer your questions live as it pertains to addiction, interventions, recovery, any of that stuff. Are we going to sing? I promise you that's not going to happen. Nah. We would lose every listener we had if I tried to sing. So,
now hold up a minute, bud. I've been told that I can carry a tune.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about me. I'd chase everybody away. All right. So let's, Sam, let me just start off by checking in with you. We haven't actually done an episode here for a couple of weeks. We've both been pretty busy. How are you doing, man?
Well, Matt, I've got a little burnout going on. I'm coming to realize I've been doing a lot of interventions since spring of the year. Just seem to have just ramped up. And, even when I'm the most spiritually fit that I've ever been, I'm still going to experience some burnout in this field, right? We all do. Well, I talked to my sponsor last night and did a long nightly review last night, and it's come to my awareness, I'm probably the last to be aware of this, I've been a little unsettled. I've been a little spiritually ill. I've been trying to run the show. I've been in some fear around my kids, around my family, around this new business venture that we're doing, Intervention on Call. I'm in a healthy relationship for the first time in my freaking life, and I have been trying to manage it all, and I've been stepping on some toes. So it's about getting back to basics for me right now, in the more depth and some prayer and some meditation. Spent a day, working, but also checking in with my family, checking in with others, seeing how they're doing, and actually writing out an in-depth nightly review. But I tell you, I'm tired. I was from Friday to Monday night. Saturday I spent at home, but from Friday to Monday night, I've been to 7 states. And it's, at 49 years old, I don't travel as well as I used to. I lost my ass somewhere along East Tennessee.
Those road miles
I left
add
it
up,
at a
don't
gas
they?
station. They do. But you know, I'm grateful overall, but I've got some work to do. You know, how about you, bud? How are you? How are things been?
You know, things have been good. It's been kind of a slow couple of weeks, which honestly I kind of needed. I start kind of the whirlwind tour tomorrow. I'm going to head to Houston tomorrow morning for an intervention there on Friday, either Friday evening or Saturday morning. Whenever I'm wrapped up there and can get on a plane, I'm headed to Portland, Oregon, back here in my home state of Oregon, to do an intervention there on Sunday. And then I'll probably head back to Texas to Amarillo on, sometime in the early part of next week. There's also one in Salt Lake City that I just talked to today. So at some point, I'm probably going to be doing 4 interventions sometime in the next 2 weeks, or maybe even in the next week and a half. And it's going to get busy. I'll probably be feeling like you are right about this time next week.
Yeah. Well, it's good. You got to make hay while the sun shines, you know?
Yes, you do. Well, why don't we just jump right in here? I see that there's some people asking some questions here. Do any of you do interventions in Maryland? Sam, that's practically your backyard. Why don't you jump in there?
It is. I do a lot of interventions in Maryland, mainly in Maryland, really, to be honest with you, because there's many treatment centers along the Eastern Seaboard that refer to me for interventions, and a lot of them reside in Maryland. So I'm in Maryland, probably 30 interventions a year in Maryland, I guess. So yeah, we do. Yeah, but we go nationwide. I know Matt goes nationwide. Yeah. He goes out of the country. He's bilingual, so he can do, Hispanic interventions. I do nationwide. So it's really very common for an interventionist to travel a lot for the work that we do, because in relation to how many treatment centers are out here in the country, I mean, you can't really swing a dead cat without hitting a treatment center. There's not a lot of interventionists out here. There's some people that claim to be interventionists.
Yeah,
but
that's the problem.
Yeah. The good ones are few and far between. So.
Now, there's a question in here that says, would you happen to know the best place to go for detox in Ohio? Now, man, that's kind of a big question. I did an intervention for somebody in Ohio last year, and we ended up using a place in Columbus called Recovery Village, and that's where he went for detox there. And so that's really the most recent interaction that I've had with a detox in Ohio. So you might want to check out Recovery Village. They did a great job for this particular client that I worked with. So you might want to give them a look.
Yeah, as far as me, Ohio, I've only done a couple of interventions in Ohio. It's been years since I've been to Ohio. Last time I remember, it was snow on the ground. It was years ago. I was running behind a lady who didn't want to be a part of the intervention, and it was snow on the ground. She was running around the back of her house, and I was in the snow in my cowboy boots, slipping and sliding, trying to keep up with her. But I don't know a lot about detox in Ohio. I apologize for that.
There's been a couple of questions that I've seen come up here about insurance, about, why is it difficult to get into treatment? It's kind of a loaded question. I'm going to venture an answer here because I think it's a fair question. It's an important question. It's not the same answer I would have given several years ago before Obamacare and all of that. And I don't want to get political about Obamacare. So if you have a comment about that, keep it to yourself. But since that legislation has passed, addiction, mental health should be treated as any other medical condition as far as insurance goes. And so there should not be any wait periods. There should not be any pre-existing conditions attached to that. If you have health insurance, you should be able to get into a treatment center. And you are always welcome to email us at questions@partyrecords.com if you have a question about your specific area. And one of us will make sure that we answer that question for you about helping you find something locally. Now, if you have no insurance or if you're on state Medicaid, the best thing that you can do is to call the Medicaid office for your local provider. Now, sometimes Medicaid is run directly through the state. Sometimes the Medicaid is run through an outside provider. And so rather than just make a dozen phone calls to a bunch of treatment centers hoping they take Medicaid, what I would do is call the local Medicaid office, find out, because sometimes you have to stay within your county and it's different state to state. And so what I would do is say, call Medicaid, find out where they're contracted, and that'll just reduce the workload that you have to do on the front end to try to get in. And if you don't have insurance and you need to get into treatment, file for Medicaid in your local state and then go through the process that I just explained. Sam, do you have anything else to add to that question? Because I have an idea that if we don't answer it now, it's going to come up a lot tonight.
No, I don't, man. I mean, you covered that like you work for Medicaid. I mean, who can top that answer? That was classic answer. But they did ask Detox in Maryland, and because Maryland is right above me, and I do a lot of work in Maryland, there is an excellent detox center. It's just outside of Maryland, just outside of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. It's called Innovo Detox, INNOVO Detox. They do excellent work. It's a very comfortable environment. It's not like a psych unit where there's going to be people lying on the floor trying to bite their own ear. It's not that type of place where you got to wear those little booty socks. It's a standalone detox center. I mean, that's what they do is detox people, and they do a wonderful job with it. There's several treatment centers in Maryland that do offer detox as well. Ashley Addiction Treatment. They've been around 50 years. They used to be called Father Martin Ashley. They have a detox center on site. But my go-to, and I'm not endorsed by these people. They're not sponsors of the podcast. I'm just sharing information from working in the field and what I see that works well. Innovo Detox would be my go-to, definitely, in Maryland. It's not in Maryland. It's right above Maryland, so.
And I think that's a good point to make here, because unfortunately, there are interventionists out there, people that call themselves interventionists that do have financial relationships with treatment centers. And I know you and I professionally, and especially since we started this podcast, I think tonight when I mentioned the place in Ohio, I think that's the first time I've mentioned a treatment center by name since we started the podcast. I want to be really clear that we're not affiliated, and we don't want affiliation or financial strings attached with any treatment centers. We want to have the freedom to be able to tell anyone the best fit for them, regardless of finances. It's too, not only is it illegal, it's unethical. And so we stay away from that.
Yeah. We're getting some good questions here. Don't want to spend too much time on detox. I wouldn't imagine about pointing out detox centers, right? I mean, I'd love to, but, this lady here said need help for myself and my sister in Florida. I've never been to detox, but she has, but left. Detox in Florida is not that difficult to find. I know there's Sunrise Detox outside of Orlando. Right now, put on the spot, that's the only one that I can think of. Do you know any more, Matt, that are out in that way that I haven't thought of? Well, I was only thought of one.
Well, I mean, when you look at what's available on a national level, California and Florida probably have more treatment centers per capita than any other state out there. Florida's got a lot. And so it's not going to be hard to find anything. I hesitate to mention anything by name just because, I mean, I know Sunrise and they do a phenomenal job and they can handle some really complex detoxes. So I think it's worth mentioning them. I don't know that there's anybody else that I'd mention by name here tonight. Now, one of the things that you said in that question is she left detox early. And there's been a few other people here that have asked questions about enabling, about family dynamics. And I think that's a good segue into talking about the thing that you and I deal with probably more than any other topic when it comes to addiction, when it comes to intervention, is this common problem of enabling. Why don't you jump in and give your 2 cents on that first, and I may add something here when you're done, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
The thoughts on enabling?
Yeah. I know you've talked on it here on TikTok before, and I know we've addressed it many times on the podcast, but I think it's worth, since we have some people live, let's talk about it.
Yeah, well, I'm a firm believer, and my experience has shown me this, is that there has never been a case that has come across my desk or come across my phone that there has not been some strategy that can be put in place to motivate them to want to get some help, right? There just has not been, not a single case that has come. I had one time, not too long ago, a fella said, my son's in prison for the next 15 years. I'm like, well, I mean, I don't know, don't give him any honey buns. I don't know what, there's not, that one threw me for a loop, right? But, and it always, the strategy comes down to no enabling. There's always some enabling to some degree that families don't realize they're doing. always.
And what are the most common forms of enabling that you see?
Providing shelter, providing a phone, providing attorney fees, staying in the relationship with them. If it's not your son or your daughter, it's, staying in the relationship with them. Hell, even down to, helping them get up off the floor when they pass out, or putting a pillow up underneath their head when they pass out on the floor. Lying to the neighbors, keeping secrets from the rest of the family. That's a big one that people don't realize that they're doing. Covering for them at work.
Yeah.
Things like that. Attorney's fees. I think I mentioned that.
Well, I think finances of any kind. I mean, one of the very first interventions I did, probably close to 18 years ago, was in New Jersey. And there was a mother. She was a single mom. Her husband had passed away, and she was leaving anywhere between $300 and $400 a day on her son's nightstand before she'd go to work. And if she didn't leave that money there, he would blow her phone up. He would show up at her work. He would make her life hell until he got that money. And like a lot of parents, she would justify it like, well, he needs gas for his car. He needs food. He needs, I'm a dad. Like we can justify this stuff sometimes. But at the end of the day, this is what I say to so many families out there, is that there's two people that have to get fired in every intervention. And that's the banker and the janitor. So there's always somebody financing the mess, and there's always someone coming behind and cleaning up the mess after it's been made. And it's not always financial. Sometimes it's emotional. Sometimes we enable just simply through our silence. I don't know about you, Sam, but I got really, really good at scaring people into silence in my life. If my family wanted to talk to me about my addiction, I was going to make that conversation so painful for them that they were going to think twice about having that conversation with me again for a long time. And so I got really good at just manipulating people into silence, because it wasn't worth the conflicts for a lot of people to try to talk about it every time it needed to be talked about. And so I think sometimes we enable people with our silence.
Yeah, I was a master at just talking them in circles until they threw their hands up and walked away wondering what the hell just happened in this conversation. And I walked away with some money in my pocket, or some gas, or whatever I needed at the time, an attorney or a ride or whatever. I had a family tonight that would just, they were just scared to death. They were like walking on eggshells around their loved one, because most of it is fear that they're going to push them over the edge. And I shared with that family tonight, it's just that you're just not that powerful. I hate to break it to you, but you're just not that powerful. It's, I said, you want to talk open, honest, and direct? Those things that you don't want to talk about is what you need to talk about and what you need to say. And you keep it in the I statements. Families have grown accustomed to telling their addicted loved one, you need to get this help. You need to figure this out. You need to make a plan. You need to get your shit together. Right? And I said, we want to keep it in the I statements. You want to be open, honest, and direct, and never, ever unkind. There's no reason to ever be unkind. And don't be afraid to abort the mission. Right? Don't be afraid when you feel like you're getting pulled down a rabbit hole to say, no, I will not have this conversation any further tonight. I love you. I'll talk to you later. Communication is everything. It's the power of the word. Communication over and over and over again.
Yeah. And the one thing that I tell families consistently as well is that just because somebody's asking you a question doesn't mean that question has to be answered. I think a lot of times, again, speaking personally, I ask very manipulative questions. How can you feel good about yourself when you're treating me the way that you are? How can you not give me the money that I'm asking you for and still call yourself a good mother or a good father? Like, I would manipulate them in such a significant way. And you and I see it all the time, but questions don't have to be answered. The word no can be a complete sentence. And I think sometimes it has to be.
Yeah, I love that no is a complete sentence. I answer a lot of texts now with just no. Mm-hmm. I don't have to justify it. I don't have to, explain myself. And my mother and father and my sister and anyone else in my family, when I was in active addiction, always followed up the no with a justification of why. They're almost an apology for them saying no. And you completely hand over your power when you do that. When you ask a question, you hand over your power to some degree. Right? So We're getting a lot of good questions.
Yeah, we are. And you know, people are bringing up specific instances, talking about specific people in their lives. And, you know, the question that I see coming across here a couple of times is, how do you change somebody? And the best way that I can answer that question is sometimes you have to have an intervention before the intervention. And I'll just kind of describe the dynamic that I use when I do interventions. And I know yours is probably similar, Sam, but before we do an intervention, there's a lot of preparation work that goes into that. There's a lot of conversations that happen, and usually you can identify within that group if somebody's going to be a saboteur, whether it's intentional or not. I'm working this family that I'm talking about in Amarillo right now. She's got 2 boys. Both of them are addicted. Both of them are almost 50 years old, never had a job in their life. And it's staggering to see just how much enabling goes on in this dynamic. And the excuse is, well, if I don't do this, they're not going to love me. If I don't do this, they're not going to talk to me. If I don't do this, then I'm going to lose them. And there's been some conditioning and some training that's happened. And I think that sometimes we have to really take a look and say, okay, do we need to intervene on that person as a group to really not to correct their behavior, but to help them, number one, understand that it's not helpful. And number two, to help them understand that they have some support. Like nobody sets out to intentionally enable their loved one. Nobody wakes up and says, yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to try to make this person a worse alcoholic or a worse drug addict today. Nobody says that. But at the same time, we don't know what we don't know. And so sometimes really just taking that person and helping them understand, like, first of all, is what you're doing working? Has it produced the results that you've wanted? And if it hasn't, that's okay. Let's maybe try a different course of action here and know that you've got the support of this entire group to help you make some changes before we ever sit down with your loved one. Because when a time comes and he's going to look at you or she's going to look at you and go, I know who the weak link is. I know who I need to get twisted up. I know who I need to really focus on to get the status quo restored. And if that person is solid or knows that they can fall back on a group of solid people, that changes everything.
Yeah. You know, another example I like to give is, let's give this example, if we will. If you've got a son that is struggling, or an addicted child that is struggling, that is suffering, and you got the mother that wants to do the intervention, but dad is not sold yet. All right, dad wants to take it a different route. Dad's about, he just needs to pull himself up by his bootstraps and get to work, or just, doing about face or whatever. The mother's asking, so how do I get dad on board? Well, I start to investigate who else is in the family. Who does dad listen to the most? Who has dad's ear? And if you find that person that has dad's ear, there's always some member in the family dynamic that someone listens to the most or more than the other person. And we will come around by that route. But communication, again, is everything, power of the word. And approaching this person, like some of the comments that I've seen here, is, what I suggest to families too is ask yourself these 3 questions. I do this with most every family that I've ever been on the phone with at the end. Is before this interventional call platform came to be, is I'd say there's 3 questions that you need to ask yourself and answer honestly. It'll give you your current reality. And one of those is what you've done up until this point, has it worked? Answer it honestly, right? Is doing nothing an option? Answer it honestly. And is your family in a crisis situation? Answer it honestly. That's going to give you your current reality. And also, when you mention the word intervention, everybody starts to freak out. They can't wrap their head around the day when someone's going to approach their loved one and the family's going to be there and the professional. It's hard to really wrap your head around that when you're a family member that's in a lot of fear. And you've had past experiences with your loved one that show that everything ends up in a big blow up. But where I go with that is that, take the intervention day off the table and just give them some, so you're not asking them, say, hey, we need to do this intervention, you need to get an intervention. Say, hey, why don't you just talk to a professional? It doesn't mean you have to do anything. It doesn't mean you have to take any action. You can end that call or leave that call anytime that you want. And just because they're giving you suggestions doesn't mean you have to do it. But let's get someone else's point of view in here. Let's get a professional's point of view. I mean, Jesus, if your toilet wasn't working right, you get a plumber out here and take care of it. If your roof was leaking, you get a roofer out here to take care of it. Let's at least get the suggestion of a professional and just see what they have to say. You just be gentle and just kind of nudge them along. I mean, if that doesn't work, there may have to come a time where you have to set a boundary with that individual and remove yourself from that situation and not be drawn into the chaos. And when they continuously bring you chaos or over a phone call and hold you emotionally hostage over the phone call or over a cup of coffee or come over to your house or whatever, and they're still refusing to talk to a professional or take any action or get into any solution, you are well within your right, and it's absolutely appropriate to say, listen, I'm not okay with hearing this anymore. I don't want to be a part of this if we're not stay stuck in the problem. I don't want to be in a problem. And it's too painful to watch you suffer like this and not take any action. So I'm going to set a boundary. You don't have to say I'm setting a boundary. You just set the boundary and say, I don't want to have this conversation with you. I will not have this conversation with you. You know, tends to work.
There should be a consequence attached to that boundary. There should be, if you continue to try to talk to me this way, I'm going to leave. There's no obligation to stay and be anybody's punching bag.
Right. And so many people, me included for a long time, you think because they're your family, you have to accept unacceptable behavior. You don't. No matter who they are. Even your father, your mother, your grandma. Your grandma's always appropriate, right? But, you don't have to accept unacceptable behavior from anyone. What else we got here?
There's a conversation going on with a couple of the people that are on here about just kind of the tone that people use with the conversation. I think there's one, Butterfly 21573 is talking about kind of the dynamic in their family. And it sounds to me like, from what she's saying, her husband's way of handling this is to yell at their son because that's the only way he knows how to do it. And whenever I come across a dynamic like this, whether it's somebody in the intervention that just doesn't have the emotional control to be able to manage their volume or their tone, or sometimes it's the person that we're intervening on who flies off the handle and they're used to being kind of the loose cannon, and that gives them what they want. Whether it's emotional violence or verbal violence or physical violence, violence is a language that people speak when they have no other way to communicate. And I think that as parents, it's our job to learn how to communicate effectively. That's on us. Our kids are not going to just automatically understand what we're saying because we're saying it louder. That's not okay. But at the same time, it's, as interventionists, it's our job to make sure that people have a way to communicate that doesn't have to take it to that place. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. It's been my experience every time I've intervened on a family or been around a family just in my private life, and the father's method was yelling. It's just clear to me that father's full of fear. Addiction, like, the heroin, the drinking, the crack, the coke, all of that is so glaring, and we think that that's the only problem in the family system, but it's not. And when we look, blah, 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 blah. When you look at the big picture, you're looking at generational trauma. Right. And it's not like the addicted individual is the only one that may be struggling with some emotional health stuff going on, right? With some emotional damage. And my bet would be the dad, the one that's yelling at this kid all the time, has got his own emotional issues. And there, I think a good opportunity for the spouse of that guy, or that dad, is to set him down. You don't have to be nasty with him, but you find your power and say, listen, that's not acceptable to me. It's not working. It's having a different effect than what you want. And I'm tired of it. And I won't live with that. I won't live that way. Scary thing to do, though. Terrifying thing to do if you're the spouse.
Well, and as parents, we have to look at the fact, somebody mentioned generational trauma just on here. I mean, there's a reason that young man is struggling, and it has nothing to do with the fact that his dad's yelling at him at this point in his life. My guess is there was a breakdown many generations back that caused this family right now, here in this moment, to be struggling the way that they are. And until that gets resolved, it's going to get passed on to the next generation and the next generation after that.
Yeah, Butterfly saying, I agree 100%. It's my ex-husband, but he has said so many hateful and hurtful things. Sounds like a guy that can't handle his emotions and doesn't know whether to shit or go blind when it comes to an emotion, right? I mean, I hate to use the language there.
Well, but here's the thing, though. We've all said and done things that we're regretful of and we're ashamed of. We can change. I'm living proof that change can happen, and I know you are too. And so I don't want to hold anybody's past against them, especially if they're willing to make some change in the present. Because we're always, as parents, I know we're always doing our best. Our best may look horribly sometimes, but we're always doing our best. And I want to try to come at this with some degree of positivity and maybe give somebody the benefit of the doubt. But at the same time, if it's not working, we got to be willing to change it. All right.
Yeah, my guess is he has a terrible emotional hangover after he has one of those little episodes that he has. I mean, I've been that guy in sobriety, fear-driven, completely fear-driven. I'm moving over to Richmond from my hometown after just getting my kids back in my life. And now I'm moving away from my family over to a suburb of Richmond with my two boys, and I'm absolutely terrified. And I look back on how I behaved with those boys in the earlier years of my sobriety, just getting settled in as a family again. And I'm just shiver at some of the things of how I behaved, acting out of anger, yelling, acting like a drill sergeant. And it wasn't effective. And I had to take corrective measures on that. Now, if you were to ask my 15-year-old right now, did Dad take corrective measures? He may say most days. I can still come off sideways, and I got to make an amends for it. And I can tell you, when I do come off sideways, I have an emotional hangover as a result of it. It's got nothing to do with the kids. It's got nothing to do with your addicted loved one. It's your ex-husband's, the way he reacts has everything to do with him and his feelings of inadequacy, really, is what it comes down to. His self-esteem's in the freaking toilet, although he would never let you know that. But that's what's really going on. A man, and I'm coming from personal experience, a man that acts that way is absolutely terrified and has zero self-esteem. And could you agree, Matt?
I would absolutely second that in this society and historically and even in this day and age, it's not okay for a man to sit there and say, you know what, I'm really scared. I don't know what to do right now. I find myself at a loss and I have no idea how to fix this problem. To sit there and admit fear is a weakness in our society today, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And I'm not necessarily endorsing that point of view. But we're also conditioned to let our fear be masked by anger or violence or, whatever it is. It's if you see me as angry, I don't appear as weak as I would be if I were to sit there and tell you that I'm scared or I'm insecure. Mm-hmm. And I think that if we would just be real and be willing to say, you know what, man, I don't know what to do. I've got a problem here and I have no idea how to solve it. And the problem is me. It has nothing to do with my children who may not be acting the right way, or they may be addicted, or they may be having problems. The only thing that I have control over is me and my behavior and how I approach that problem. I'm not going to change them. I'm only going to change the way I interact with them. And that may make all the difference.
Yeah, I meant to say this earlier because it brought it up in me when this lady asked, how do you change someone? And you think about how something that you want to change in yourself. For me, it's hitting this vape, right? I put cigarettes down. I still hit this vape, this masculine looking thing right here. It's peach. I'd like to lose a few pounds and I'd like to build my muscle back. The older I get, the less muscle I have. And, it's very difficult to change things in ourselves and how hard we want to change some things in ourselves. Can you imagine attempting to change someone else? The best way to change someone else is to be the best version of ourselves and work on ourselves and have clear boundaries demonstrate boundaries, demonstrate good characteristics. So demonstrate what you wish to see changed in your loved one.
Well, and this question here is a great follow-up to that. To be able, Nat's Life says, how do you maintain self-preservation and still try to push sobriety? It's been 15 years with my mom. The reality is we can't push sobriety. We can't. I mean, what Sam just said is I'll just kind of repeat it maybe in a different way, but the only thing we can do is create boundaries with people. To be able to say, I want to have a relationship with you. For you to be able to say to your mom, I want a relationship with you, but I can't have a relationship under these current conditions. And so if you're willing to meet me and have a relationship where we can both define the terms of this relationship, where I'm not being dictated or held hostage by your addiction. I mean, that's what my mom said to me the day that they tried to intervene on me. She said, Matt, I'm never going to be a prisoner in my own home ever again. And I had no idea what she meant. I didn't realize that I was holding my family hostage because all I cared about was me. Mm-hmm. But those boundaries, if we'll put them into effect and really hold them, we don't have to control as much. We don't have to push. It just kind of comes along naturally. And it's anticlimactic, I think, probably a little bit to say that. It's like I wish there was some magic bullet that I could give you to like, okay, here's how you fix this. But Nat's Life, all you can do is implement some boundaries. And if they can't respect those boundaries, what they're saying is, this is not a relationship I want on your terms.
And it may be, listen, we don't have all the information here. It's really difficult to get a clear understanding with just a couple of sentences on these messages.
Oh, I'll make it up. I'll make it up along the way.
We get, the gist of it. But when she was saying that and you were responding to that, something in me said, is she made this attempt on her own, right?
Good point.
Of the daughter just approaching mom on her own, right? Or never approaching mom. Like, there's a lot of power in bringing a family unit together and confronting an addicted individual that is struggling with emotional wounds. And I always say emotional wounds. It's never about the drugs. It's never about the drink. Never.
Absolutely.
It's always what's driving it. And more times than not, it's trauma, adverse childhood experiences, right? It's some emotional damage that's driving all of that. And she's suffering. And there's a lot of power in bringing other family members together that are speaking the same language, that have the same goal in mind, and that are all willing to be very careful in the manner in which they speak, but speak open, honest, and direct, but always kind. And everyone set boundaries, and everyone encouraged her to get some help. But even before you do that, find a bed for her to get to. Find a treatment bed. So many families, I just put a video out on this, so many families they don't have a bed lined up. And that's one thing that they can do to stay in the solution is or to work in the solution and not sit around and wring their hands and peep out the blinds and hunt their loved one down, is get in the solution, find a treatment bed. And I know everyone says they're hard to find, and resources and finances and insurance and whatnot, but it's there. If you're short on resources, you're short on insurance sucks or whatever, there's treatment available. There is. You're going to have to dig for it. It's not going to jump up and bite you, just like I said on my video. But there is treatment available. Find the bed for them. And then another thing that shocks me is how many families have contacted me for suggestions or for an intervention case or what have you, and they've never asked their loved one, do they want to get well? They've never asked them, hey, you want to get some help? You want to get well? And when you do that and you have a bed available and you say, listen, I've got a bed available. You want to get well today? I know you're suffering. You don't ask them, do they have a problem? So many families also go to this thing or just approach their loved one and say, and think the goal is them to admit that they have a problem. We don't even debate that or whether they have a problem or not. We know there's a problem. We're not even going to open that door for a debate when we're talking to individuals. It's about, what do you want to do about the problem? We're not here to debate if you do or you don't have one. We know that you do. It's obvious. So we're just cut the shit on that. Do you want to get some help today?
Well, and Barbara here says, I would ask my husband, what's making you so unhappy that you have to drink every day? And Barbara, what I would suggest is, and very respectfully try to suggest, is that that's probably the wrong question to ask. Because if somebody had asked me that question back in the day, I could have told you a number of reasons why I was unhappy, and they had everything to do with everything in the outside world. You were my problem. My ex-wife was my problem. My job was my problem. You know, the fact that I didn't get enough sleep last night was a good reason for me to drink. I think the right question to ask is, do you want to be happy? And I think that if we start there, because even on a bad day, I could say, yeah, I'm not happy, but I don't know why. I don't know why I drink. I mean, how many times, Sam, did you wake up and say, you know what, I'm not going to drink or use today, only to find yourself drinking and using later that day?
Man, I had a pond behind my house, and you could reach the pond. Well, you could throw something in the pond from the back deck. And I can't tell you, I'm sure there's like a hidden island out there that's just below the surface, full of crack pipes and weed bowls and bongs where I've thrown off the back deck. I know it's not good for the environment. I just
some
really
catfish with 6 eyes, yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, of how many times I said I wasn't going to use anymore, that I'm done, I'm over it. And then I'm like, damn, I got to go buy another stem, you know? So many times. But listen, Nat's life said, oh, yes, many approaches. When she said she's approached her, but never as a family. I think that's very key. But see, because when we approach alcoholism by ourselves, we're typically going to get our ass handed to us.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, there's power in numbers. All right, and you know, that's I think our experiences show us that when we bring family together and coach them and they're working as one unit, it's much more productive. The results you can't argue with the results, all right?
Well, we got a few more minutes here, Sam, before we sign off. I know we wanted to try to do this for about an hour tonight. I think we're getting, 5, 6, 7 minutes from that. I'd love it if anybody has a question that hasn't been answered yet, or if we've somehow missed a question that you've asked earlier, go ahead and put it back up here so we can take a look at it and try to get to it before we shut it down for tonight.
Butterfly 21573 says, my son has mentioned rehab. And, someone else says, many addicts don't know that they have a problem. I tend to disagree with that. We know something isn't right. Every one of us knows that something's not right here. Something's not right. And it's a big struggle for us. It was for me, is that I knew I was created to be something much different than where I was. I knew that. Like every time that I'd roll up to the methadone clinic, I'm like, man, I'm not supposed to be here. I don't belong here. I'm not supposed to do this. Every time I'd wake up and like the 4 horsemen staring at me, terror, frustration, bewilderment, and despair, I knew that something wasn't right. I knew I was way out of where I was supposed to be. But, as it turns out, everything was for a reason, and it got me to where I am today to be able to help somebody and have some freedom in my life, and I'm grateful for it, man. I'm grateful that we went down the paths that we went to, because we're very fortunate, aside from a lot of other people, because we've lived both lives and have come out the other side, and not a lot of people can say that. We've lived both lives. I lived that drug life, that running cocaine life, and now I get to live the sitting on the couch with my boy watching TV, cooking supper, just being at peace.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't mean to get off topic.
No. You're good, man. You're good. And I think that there was a couple of questions that I saw here, and I certainly don't want to deviate from anything here, but there was. Let me just see if I can scroll down here. Never mind. No, I don't want to exit the live room. Sorry, I'm not going to be able to get back to those questions.
That's live.
Somebody had asked. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, Matt. Nat's Life 79 said, how can we get your services or talk to you for guidance? And I think this is a perfect opportunity to plug in our sponsor for the podcast, which is Intervention on Call. It's my platform. I kind of jokingly say sponsor because it's my platform. I'm on it. Matt's on it. And it's a platform that you can go on. It's called Intervention on Call, www.interventiononcall.com. We are both on that platform. You create an account. It takes like 2 minutes. It's free to do that. And you can book time with us an hour at a time. There's 7 other interventionists on there as well. And you can choose which interventionist you want, and you can get guidance. You can get an appointment within a matter of an hour to 2 hours. And it's an hour session. It's $150. And you're not going to find anything more affordable than that. Everyone has been very pleased that has been on the sessions with us or any other interventionists on the platform. I've vetted the interventionists myself. They're good people. They're in this for the right reasons, and they do excellent work. So there it is, interventiononcall.com. You know I got to plug that.
Absolutely, and rightly so. Now there was somebody that asked a question, now that I'm remembering it. I'm getting old enough that I've got to sometimes go back and chase a thought. How do you know if someone's actually staying sober if you don't have contact with them? You know, sometimes there will have to be a boundary where it says, listen, until you're in treatment or until you're sober, I can't have a relationship with you. I'm not going to have a relationship with you under the current circumstances. At some point, there has to be some investigation done on your part. You know, asking them to prove their sobriety can only go so far. But what I will say, and this is not just to answer this question, but really take a look at any kind of behavior out there. It's kind of like, and it's just, I may have mentioned this with you earlier, Sam, on a previous episode of the podcast, but it's kind of like watching a movie in a foreign language. If you try to pay attention to the words on the screen, you're gonna miss the whole thing. Like if I'm watching a movie in Chinese, I don't speak Chinese. If I just try to pay attention to the words, I'm going to miss the entire thing. But if I turn the volume down and just watch the behavior as it happens on the screen, I'm not going to catch everything, but behavior is pretty universal. I'm going to be able to follow the story, at least in broad strokes. And I would say that that's probably the best way to go back and answer that question is watch the behavior. If the behavior shows you that they're living according to principles that somebody who's sober would live, if they're honest, if they can make a promise and keep it, you know, these are all really good signs. If they have a smile on their face that looks like they're really happy, you know, I know when I was using and drinking, I could show up for about 15 minutes and make you think that I was okay. But any longer interaction than that, it was, you know, you might actually figure me out. And so I wouldn't stay engaged for much longer than that in most cases, unless we were getting high together. But, you know, it's one of those things that if you watch the behavior will tell the story. And that's, I think, the best way to answer that question, unless you've got something else you want to jump in there with, Sam.
I love that, man. I do. I love that. I knew when you started saying it, I said, he's coming out with that, man. That was one of the greatest things you've ever said. I will never forget it as long as I live. And I have stolen it and I've used it with families. And it makes sense, you know? And
the comment says, but he won't see me. I'd say that's probably a red flag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely a red flag. Healing and not step amends. You know, part of the process of recovery is cleaning up the wreckage of your past. Even if you're not in a 12-step fellowship, is part of the recovery process is to clean up your past and repair relationships. And if he's refusing to see you, unless you had, beat him upside the head with a bat before he got sober, I mean, that may be a good reason not to see you. But, you know, I believe that's a telltale sign that something is awry here, you know?
Yeah. And you know, the only thing that I would say to you, since you're the one asking the question, you're the one who shows some willingness here, is take a look at your part of this relationship. And if there's something that you need to clean up, do it. You know, and see what you can do to clean up your side of the street here. And that's the best advice I can give you tonight.
Yeah, no. Well, excellent advice. Excellent. I told you all he was well-spoken and just a dashing man.
All right, knock it off. Knock it off.
Right, somebody asked a couple of times how do you get over the fear of withdrawal in order to
yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, that's just I'm going to say this is just as straightforward as I can, is That's some stuff you're telling yourself. Detox is medical detox. They bring you down comfortably, right? And even if you've got it's just when you look at your life, when you look at where you're headed, when you look at your past behaviors, the fear of going through withdrawal is some bullshit. Am I wrong?
No.
When facing what you have done, withdrawal, that's bullshit. You man up or woman up, you put 10 toes forward, your eyes are pointed straight, and you march your ass right up into a detox center and say, I am done with this. I am done living this way. That's what you do. That's how you do that.
Now, that's not to say that people don't keep using because they're scared of that physical discomfort.
I get it.
It happens. It happens. But
I get it.
But if you truly believe that your life is on the line, that your relationships are on the line, that your future is on the line, all I can say is it's worth it. It's such like, do you even remember what it felt like, Sam, to go through withdrawals? Like, is the memory of that something that scares you?
Man, the one thing I remember about my detox, and I was detoxing off 180 milligrams of methadone, and was the Jimmy legs. And they gave me a bath with some Epsom salt, took care of that. But it was the Jimmy legs was the worst part of it. And the fact that I was sleeping on a pillow that looked like a sheet of paper in the detox center. And I was a little fearful of the guy I was rooming with. He something went right with him. But as far as like the physical part, I mean, and once I got out of detox, because it was methadone, the withdrawals lasted a lot longer. Mm-hmm. The residuals was, flu-like symptoms, stuffy nose, things like that. Sneezing, I sneezed for several months. But, man, I'm going to tell you what, I'd do it all. I wouldn't have hesitated a second to do it, if I'd have known what sobriety was going to be like. But I do understand the fear of going through withdrawal while you're still using. It is some bullshit that your head's telling yourselves, but when you're operating out of what's the reptilian brain, right? That part of the brain is just about survival. It's nothing else comes in between you and your use. Right. And then it's that fear of withdrawal in light of everything that's happened. That's some bullshit, though. That's the reality of it.
It is. And, once you're on the other side of it, you can see it for that. It's hard right now for some people if they're, they've got it sitting right in front of them. And it's like, man, this is scary. This is going to be hard. And what most people are scared of isn't necessarily the physical discomfort. It's what is my life going to be like once I do this? Is it going to be worth it? It's not the physical pain that scares most people. It's the anxiety of I'm stepping into a life that I have no idea how to live. I don't want what I have, and I'm not sure that I know what to do in this life that I'm walking towards here. And that's a scary thing. I told myself all the time, like, I know how to live this life. I don't want to live this life, but it's familiar. I know how to navigate the life of a drug addict. I have no idea how to navigate the life of a sober man yet. And for that reason, I'd stayed stuck a lot longer than I needed to.
Good point. Good point, buddy. Good point. This living my sober life, I've seen her pop up a lot on my videos. And she talks about her son going to detox and been to detox a bunch of times. But, I've suggested that she get with somebody and talk to him, get some strategy, because I am quite certain that can be stopped. Like I said, I've never seen a case come across me that there wasn't some strategy we could put in place. And if he keeps going to detox, that tells me that the fellow wants to stop. Mm-hmm. But he's got options. Somebody, somewhere, something is giving him some options. So I get excited when I hear stuff like that. But what I'm living my sober life, you need to reach out to us. It's the best $150 you've ever spent. You don't have to choose Matt or I. You can just choose another interventionist on that platform. It's not about selling you me or Matt. It's about take the step, get some strategy in place. It's $150. It's an hour, and you can put this to rest.
But it's going to be uncomfortable. I'll tell you that right now, because we're going to talk about you more than we're going to talk about your kid. And that's where we need to start. Because you're showing up, you're the one who's willing to take some action And that's where we start. And yes, will it produce some results down the line? You bet. But if you're going to talk with Samurai, just know we're going to love you, but we're going to tell you some truth. Okay?
Yep. Y'all, this has been pretty good, Matt. Y'all have been giving us some great stuff. And just for y'all to step out there on a platform of TikTok where the whole world can see and put your stuff out here is admirable. And I'm honored to be able to be here and be a part of it. I just want to share that with everybody. And Matt, always a pleasure being with you, my friend. This has been too long. We got to get on a schedule with this.
Yeah, and I want to give a big thanks to everybody who participated tonight as well. Thank you, guys. It's I'm a kind of a TikTok newbie here. I'm not quite as active. I think I've got maybe 0.5% of the followers that Sam has on TikTok. And so it's one of those things that I'm still learning how to do this, but it's impressive to see the level of transparency and engagement that you guys were willing to give us tonight. And I'd love to do this again sometime, Sam, and be able to do this. It was good for me to be able to just kind of have some real-time interaction with people.
Yeah, definitely. And, listen, partyrecords.com. That's where our podcast is. We got a bunch of episodes out there. Well, I say a bunch. I mean, for us, it is, 17?
Yeah.
17
this is number 17 right here that we're recording live right now.
Yeah. Look, user 668, such and such, said, Matt, do more videos on TikTok. I like your content. I told you that.
This is somebody who's been commenting throughout the entire thing. I have no idea who they are. I think I know them, but I have no idea who they are.
I know, the same here, but they asked me, said, on a different topic, how tall are you, Sam? Well, I'm 5'7". I am no giant, but I've got a big heart. And let's see here. So she says, I watch Sam every day. And Living My Sober Life said, do I just go to your bio for information? Yes, ma'am, you can. You can go to my bio, and the website is right there in my bio. You just click that. It's going to take you right to the site. And also, I encourage you to listen to some of the episodes on the podcast. It's all just very helpful information. And, no one's going to bite you. No one's going to yell at you. No one's going to shame you when you get a session with one of these interventionists. We're just here to help. And your life can change like that, so.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and end it for tonight. But I hope that the next time we do something like this, you guys will join us. Thank you for being here.
Hell yeah. Thank you all so much.
Good night, everybody.